Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. So today's a video that I really didn't think I would ever make, and I have to let you know what I think what's going on, what's actually going on. It's current news. It's what's happening around in the world, and a lot of people in the West don't know what's happening. And you know, what's out of sight is out of mind. But what's going on could spark World War III if people don't smarten up from going on. So what am I talking about? Well, Japan's new prime minister, I'm not even going to try to say her name. She's only been in power for about a month. And she was saying that if China attacks Taiwan, China's always Taiwan's a province of China, but Taiwan's always been kind of separatist. It's got its own little private thing going on ever since 1945, whatever, but it's always been part of China. But the Japanese prime minister said, well, if China ever attacks Taiwan, that means we have to attack China because we're so close together. And if you guys knew the history of what Japan has done to China, and for Japan to say this about China has crossed a red line with China. And I don't understand, you know, countries of the world, they know the history. They can't turn their, you know, you and me, you know, sure, I had to research a lot here to find out like what really happened in the past. But, you know, countries of the world, they know what happened in the past, and they're just kind of turning a blind eye to this, and it's just frustrating. So we'll have to go back in time a little bit. And it basically all started with the century of humiliation for China, which was from about 1839 to 1949, 110 years, where China wasn't that strong. Their empire wasn't that strong. And, you know, with the Opium Wars with England came in there, and they started wars with China then. And over opium, they wanted to sell opium, or there's something to do with opium. The Opium Wars. And so something happened there. But this is when Japan took advantage of China, and they started, there's history with China and Japan going back hundreds of years, but I'm only going to go back 150 years during China's century of humiliation. So back in 1895, the First Sino War is where Japan and China were fighting over control over Korea and Taiwan, and in the end, Japan gained control over Taiwan, and Korea stayed on its own for another, and they took control over Taiwan from 1895 right up until the end of the Second World War in 1945. And then later on in 1910, Japan gained control over Korea, which I didn't know. And from what I understand, like, Koreans don't have any love lost for the Japanese either. And Japan had control over Korea from 1910 to 1945. So Japan, you know, they were a mighty little empire, and they ruled with an iron fist, and it's such a small little nation, and they were out trying to conquer the world, and with a lot of brutality. But it wasn't up until 1931, and it's called the first, no, is that the First Sino War? No, the First Sino War was in 1895. It was the Second Sino War. Well, that started in 1937. But in 1931, Japan invaded China again, and they kept on skirmishing back and forth, and till the beginning of the Second Sino War in 1937. And it was a 3-month war in Shanghai, and they were just brutal to the Chinese, but the most brutal, heinous, unbelievable things that happened where it was called what was it called there? It was called the Nanjing Massacre, where the Japan went into Nanjing, and they hunted down military-aged men, Chinese military-aged men, and they were dispensed of. That's a nice way of putting it. Everyone they could find, they were dispensing of them. And the things that they did to women, and it's just, it's unspeakable what they did. Like, they're just brutal, sadistic. And Japan committed numerous war crimes, including notorious biological warfare with the research unit 731. And we got a little video from Joe Rogan that I want the wife to put in a little 10, 20-second thing what Joe Rogan said about it, but it was just unbelievable what they were doing, like medical experiments on Chinese people, like, oh.
Holy shit, dude. Did you know that?
What were they dropping on him?
It's contaminated fleas.
They're dropping contaminated fleas.
Oh my god, that's so dark.
Oh, here it is. Shiro Ishii, that's the guy.
That's the guy. Jesus Christ. He led in development and application of biological weapons at Unit 731, however we say it, during the Second Sino-Japanese War from 1937 to 1945, including the bubonic plague attacks
on
Chinese cities. Oh my God.
Yeah. Just disgusting. There was a lot of war crimes that they did. And the Second World War never started until September 1st, but they were already fighting China for 8 years before the beginning of the Second World War. So, in the Second World War for China was 14 years, really, because it started in 1931, not 1939. Japan was ruthlessly attacking and doing unspeakable things to the Chinese people. And it's just all, and in World War II, Japan attacked 12 countries. Like, there was Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, and USA. That's what started the Second World War. Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, and that was, they say, the beginning of the Second World War, but it wasn't. The World War, yes, but it wasn't the start of the war with China. They've been fighting China. It went on for 14 years. And so at the end of the 14-year invasion, it's hard to find on Google an exact number, but between 15 and 35 million Chinese people lost their lives and were wounded and injured, and just unbelievable things that happened to them. And it's sad. It's really sad, and people don't remember. Like, the people I work with, I ask them, do you know anything about the Japan history and Japan-China history? No. Do you know what's happening now? No. We're in the West, North America. And so it's really nobody's business. Now, why do I care? Because I have a home in China. My wife is Chinese, and I care because, I love China, and China's a peaceful nation. They got to where they are today without ever invading a country. Even after the Second World War ended, China never really asked for anything from Japan, like reparation, and Japan never apologized. They never said anything. War is war. people die in war. They didn't acknowledge that they started the war. You know, it was all Japan's doing, and they don't teach this in Japan. They don't teach that to their children today about all the atrocities they did. They have war museums and war shrines about all these war criminals that they had in their past. But in China, they learn about all the things that Japan did to them in the past. And they got films, and China will never forget how and what happened to them, and they will never let this happen to them again. It's just unbelievable. There is no words to say what they actually did. And now with this new PM that they have in Japan, the lady, I don't want to say her name, I can't pronounce her name, and she's igniting a fire that's crossed China's red line. And that is why China's getting so upset. It isn't like, oh, out of the blue that Japan is doing this. No, it's Japan, they got such bad history with each other. And for this lady to ignite this fire, it could be the beginning of World War III. And I don't understand why Europe and everybody else isn't in outrage, like, you know, what are you doing? What are you doing? And there's USA quietly sitting by, not quietly, they're selling weapons to Taiwan. They're selling weapons to Japan. USA is nothing but a military complex, and that's how USA makes a lot of their money, is from war. They changed their Department of Defense to the Department of War. And that's all they've done since World War II, is fight and fight and fight. And they've been, how many people or countries has USA invaded? The countless number. And USA is unapologetic on what they've done too. They're righteous. We got to go in there and we got to change their government, just like they did to Ukraine back in 2014. The Ukraine is fighting a proxy war for USA. It's all because of USA. USA promised them this, and oh, you go in there and stop that big bad Russia, and we'll help you. We're going to send you all these weapons. We're going to send you billions of dollars. And how has that worked out for Ukraine? It hasn't. And it's just getting worse and worse, and so many people have lost their lives, young Ukraine men and civilians are getting hurt, yes, of course. Russia's losing some people, but not as many as Ukraine. Ukraine is slowly, it's not good for Ukraine. And now the USA, they've been pushing for Taiwan's independence from China for years. Like ever since World War II, in China or Taiwan's got their own little government and independence. Now the government's in there. It's not a majority government, thank God. It's a minority. And so they don't really have the power to say, oh, we're going to separate from China. But USA's always been there pushing, selling them weapons. Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan a few years ago, and that really fired up the Chinese government, because here's a USA official going to Taiwan government, speaking in their government building on how you should separate from China and all that there. And that was a big red line back then. You know, it hasn't been all, you know, it's if you knew the history, you'd be fired up too. It's just, But back in 1972, there was some kind of meeting somewhere, and from 40 to 50 countries agreed on the one China policy. And those in agreement in the very beginning was USA and Japan. And there's 40 other, I'm not going to pretend I know the other countries there, but now there's up to 180 countries that acknowledge the one China policy. And USA says, oh, we acknowledge the one China policy, but Taiwan, you should separate. Like, just don't worry about it. You know, we'll be there, we'll sell you weapons. And so there's a two-sided edge sword there, and USA doesn't. They just want war. They've been trying to push China into a war for years, and and if China ever took the bait, like look at China did. Look what they did. Well, it's kind of like what Russia did to Ukraine. Look what Russia did. Well, no, Russia got pushed into that war because the U.S. kept on pushing Ukraine into the UN, and the USA is trying to push Taiwan into independence. USA is supporting Japan on their new ridiculousness about, and USA has many military bases in Japan. But Japan's just been a little puppet for USA ever since World War II. And the USA is laughing like, if there's ever a war to start out, who do you think is going to get hurt the worst? Well, it's going to be Japan. I guarantee you, China, they're not going to stand by and let Japan walk all over them. No, Japan and Taiwan. But what people don't understand, Taiwan is China. Taiwan, the people in Taiwan are Chinese. Now, some of them, yes, they want to separate, just like Quebec in Canada. They wanted to separate, but they never did. They're still part of Canada. They're Canadian. Taiwan is a province of China, and Taiwan people are Chinese. So that's why China hasn't rushed into attacking China, because they don't want to attack their relatives. They've been trying to negotiate peace with Taiwan for years, and that's one of their goals, is to reunify Taiwan with China. And hopefully one of these days it happens. There's a 50-50 in Taiwan now. They want to, they want things to stay the way they are now. And they kind of like a special zone like Hong Kong used to be until the Hong Kong protest years ago. And then China had to step in and say, well, look, you pushed your freedom a little bit too far. And so Hong Kong, they kind of lost some of the freedom that they used to have. But that's what Taiwan, a lot of Taiwan people want, is that they just kind of stay the status quo. And yes, they're part of China. We don't need independence. Now, this last September, China had a military parade, and they showed the world what they had, and it's unlike any other military in the world. And they showed pictures of the USA military parade, and they're kind of synchronized, and the people marching along and stuff like that with their guns, and it was nothing compared to the show that China put on for the world. And he had, when the military parade, President Putin from Russia and Kim Jong-un of North Korea, they were there with President Xi, sitting there watching the Chinese parade in September. So there's some force there that you really don't want to mess with there. So, but if anything ever went down, I'm pretty sure Russia and North Korea are going to be right beside China supporting them. But people seen all this military might, and they said, oh, it's not real. China's just a paper tiger. Well, no, they're not. China has all the rare earth minerals you need rare earth minerals to make the bombs, to smart bombs. And they got some weapons, supersonic weapons or something like that there that only China has. And they built up their military for what? It's for defense. China is one of the biggest economic countries in the world, one of the biggest populations in the world, and from their past, that is why China has built up their military to defend themselves. They're not out attacking people. China has got to where it is today without invading another country in the last 150 years. So, and it's for defense. It's not offense. And they will stop anybody that tries to prevent their peaceful rise. They will stop anybody trying to if they cross this red line with Taiwan, Taiwan's China. China will defend Taiwan from these other forces trying to help Taiwan. No, China's not going to put up with that. So, you know, for people to say that, you know, China is, that's why they did it. That's why China has one of the best militaries in the world, and they're equal. I'm not going to say they're better than the USA Army, but they're equal. They have enough military might to defend themselves. And like Victor Gao is a government spokesman for China. Like, he speaks a lot about China. I don't know whether he works for the government, but you see a lot of videos on YouTube with Victor Gao, and he said, China, if you take a shot at China, if you're trying to attack China, you'll get one shot, but you'll never get the second shot. And if you're trying to destroy China, China will destroy you. And that's understandable. And you know, with all these nuclear weapons around the world, like, the world will change forever. If this ever gets out of control and World War III ever happens, the world will change forever, and nothing's going to stop it. You know, China, you know, if USA can destroy the world 1,000 times, and China can, and you know, and China can only destroy the world 100 times, it's the same thing. You know, if things go down, things are going to go down, and it ain't going to be good for anybody. Nobody in the world. The world will change, and it's so sad, and I'm so worked up over this here. And like I say, North America, people in North America, the people I work with don't understand. They don't even know. They don't pay attention to this kind of news. In Asia, they understand. They know. And they're playing with fire. You know, this Japan woman, like, I can't remember, the Chinese official, like, they should cut off something of, I don't know how it went down, cut off the dirty neck or head or of the people that are trying to stir up all of this trouble. Well, people have to stop and think of what's going on here. And China will never forget. All around China, there's monuments. And when we were in Chongqing there last year, we went into Jiafen Bay in Chongqing. And there's the People's Liberation Monument. And it's Chinese victory, celebrating Chinese victory over anti-China, anti-Japanese rule, or whatever it is. Like, it's the victory over Japan, when Japan got shut down. So, and there's Guolo Mountain. We were up on Guolo Mountain, and they used to do some things up on the mountain where they held prisoners. And on the bottom of the mountain, there's a museum that we went into in 2008 when my wife and I got married. We went into this museum, and you can see all the pictures and the monument, you know, the museum remembering what happened in the past. And all over China, there's many places in China, there's a lot of remembered monuments and everything, so people don't forget, and Chinese people will never forget. And I hope this little video I made today here is just open up some people's eyes. You know, it's not, you know, how, and doing the research on this here, you know, I seen that there's a lot of similarities in between Japan and USA, and I hate to say it, but, you know, Japan used to be an empire that ruled with a brutal fist, and they were just sadistic. They did a lot of war crimes, and, you know, just the things they did in the past is so horrible. And they've been kind of dormant for the last 75 years. Before then, they were unstoppable until they got stopped at the end of World War II. But look what USA has done since World War II. How many countries have they invaded? How many people have perished because of what USA done? And they're unapologetic either. Oh, we got to change your government. We got to do this. We got to do that. So the world is a sad place. And, you know, Donald Trump, when he was before he was elected the second term here. He said if China and USA worked together, they could solve all the problems in the world. And why the hell don't they do that? You know, China's economically, I think China government spends about 60% of their revenue back into their country, making high-speed trains and infrastructure. Like if you go to China, if you see some of our videos or other people's videos, China's like looking into the future. And China's reasonably safe, and you know, you don't see the problems that are happening around the world right now with all the inflation and the homelessness and the drugs and everything that's happening in Europe and USA and Canada, all over the world except for China. Like, you don't want, like I said before, if you're a bad person, don't go to China because it's not going to work out well for you. But, you know, USA is one of the strongest, most powerful countries in the world. If they concentrated on their own country, they could have exactly what China has. You know, if they made high-speed trains, do high-speed trains make money in China? No, they're a money loser. But they bring China together. They open up China where areas used to be closed. It used to take 10 times longer to cross these distances than they do today. So, you know, it's all what your country wants to do for the people. And I think that's what China's done. And if you know, if you look, you can see it. A lot of countries can go to China for 240 hours visa-free. And I encourage everyone that sees this video, go to China. You can go there without a visa for 240 hours. And in most countries in the world, you can go to China. So go check it out, you know. So I think that's it. I think I covered most of what I wanted to say. I had quite a few notes written down here, but after writing it down, I kind of off the cuff. So it's not like reading on a computer. I hate doing that. I tried that a couple of times and I'm just not comfortable doing it. I'm more comfortable doing it this way here. And I'm just sharing with you my thoughts. So anyway, I think that's it. And check into it, you know. It wouldn't hurt for people to be informed. So we'll see you next time.